The stars above the mining colony flickered like dying candles. Rusty machines rumbled through the night and the air smelled of smoke and metal. Workers finished their shifts and dragged their tired bodies toward the shelter domes. But one man stayed behind. Eli Ward, a mechanic who fixed broken bots and scrappers. He had been hearing strange sounds near the scrapyard for days. The clatter of metal, soft footsteps, and once, something that almost sounded like crying. At first he thought it was just wild animals. But tonight, when he turned off his torch and listened carefully, he heard it again. A small whimper. He followed the sound between the junk piles. The moonlight reflected off metal parts. Twisted arms of broken droids, shattered helmets, cracked ship panels. Then he saw movement, small and quick, like a shadow darting behind a crate. "Hey," he called softly. "Who's there?" No answer, only silence and the distant hum of generators. He took one slow step closer, then another, and that's when he saw her. She was crouched beside an old food container, her hands digging into it desperately. She was tiny, maybe 8 or 9 years old, but not human. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes large and glowing faintly blue in the dark. She tore pieces of stale bread from the trash and ate them as if she hadn't eaten for days. Eli froze, his heart squeezed painfully. "My God," he whispered. The little alien girl looked up in fear. She backed away like a scared animal, clutching the bread to her chest. Her lips trembled and she hissed softly like she was warning him not to come closer. Hey, it's okay," Eli said gently, raising his hands. "I'm not gonna hurt you." She didn't seem to understand his words. Her eyes darted from his face to his hands and back to the path behind her, ready to run. Eli slowly pulled a pack of ration chips from his pocket, warm food he hadn't opened yet. He placed it on the ground and pushed it toward her. "Here," he said. "Real food." The girl didn't move. She stared at the small silver packet, then at him. Her fingers trembled. Finally, she crawled forward, snatched the food, and tore it open with sharp little teeth. Steam rose into the cold night air as she devoured the meal in seconds. Eli just watched. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. A child from another world eating like an animal, alone in a human colony where aliens were forbidden to live. "How long have you been out here?"
he asked softly.
"Where are your people?" She didn't answer, just kept her wide, glowing eyes on him, ready to run again. Eli took off his jacket and slowly placed it over her shoulders. She flinched at first, then looked down at the heavy fabric. It was warm, and she pulled it tighter around herself. For the first time, her expression softened. Just a little. "There you go," Eli whispered. "You're safe now." He could see her clearly now. Scars on her wrists, dirt on her face, and strange markings along her arms that shimmered faintly like starlight. She wasn't just any alien. She was from one of the royal-blooded species and the kind humans almost never met. But what was a royal child doing here? Hiding in trash? Starving? Eli's thoughts raced. If the patrols found her, she'd be taken, maybe even killed. The galactic law was clear. No alien refugees allowed on human colonies, especially not from the royal worlds. The girl whispered something then, a soft, broken sound. It didn't sound like any language Eli knew. She pointed to the sky, then made a small gesture. A falling motion like a ship crashing. "You fell from the sky," Eli guessed. "Your ship crashed?" She blinked, then slowly nodded. "Damn," he muttered. "So that's how you ended up here." He looked up at the night sky, where distant ships blinked like stars. Somewhere up there, someone might be looking for her, or maybe hunting her. The girl tugged at his sleeve, eyes wide with silent fear. Then Eli heard it too, a low hum in the distance. Patrol drones, he cursed under his breath. They were scanning the sector, maybe for scrap thieves, maybe for her. He didn't have time to think. "Come on," he whispered, picking her up gently. She was light, far too light. She froze in his arms at first, trembling, but when the drone light passed over the junk pile, she hid her face in his chest. Eli ducked behind an old transport hull until the light faded away. Only then did he breathe again. "Looks like you're stuck with me, kid," he said quietly. The girl looked up at him, her small face half hidden under his jacket. For the first time, she wasn't afraid. She touched his chest lightly, the human's heart beating fast under his shirt, and whispered one word, strange but beautiful. "Eli." He blinked. "You? Know my name?" She just smiled faintly, the smallest, saddest smile he'd ever seen. And in that moment, Eli realized this wasn't just a lost alien girl. She was someone important, someone dangerous to protect, and the whole galaxy would soon come hunting for her. Eli carried the little alien girl through the shadows, his boots crunching softly against metal dust. The night on Vega 9 was cold, and the wind whistled through broken pipes. The colony's main siren howled far away, warning of a storm, but Eli knew it wasn't just the weather. The drones were still searching. He ducked inside his small repair shack, a rusted container filled with tools, scrap parts, and a small heater. The girl looked around, frightened but curious. The light from the heater made her silver skin glow softly like moonlight on water. "You're safe here," Eli whispered, locking the door. "No one will find you." The girl sat down quietly on the floor. Her big blue eyes followed him as he moved around the room. She still clutched the empty food pack like it was treasure. Eli sighed. "You must be freezing." He took an old blanket from a shelf and wrapped it around her shoulders. She looked up at him, confused at first, then she smiled just a little. It was the first real smile he'd seen from her. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She blinked, tilting her head like she didn't understand. Then she touched her chest and whispered something soft. "Lyra." "Lyra," Eli repeated. "That's a beautiful name." The girl smiled again, shyly this time. Eli poured warm water into a small cup and handed it to her. She sniffed it carefully before drinking. Her fingers were delicate, glowing faintly where the light touched them. Whoever she wasn't ordinary. Her kind was rare and powerful. He sat across from her, trying to think. "So, Lyra, you crashed here, huh? Maybe your ship's still out there." Lyra looked at the small metal map screen on his workbench. She pointed toward the outer desert, beyond the mines where even the patrols didn't go. Then she drew a small circle in the dust. Eli leaned closer. "That's where your ship is?" She nodded quickly. Then her expression changed. She touched her wrist, where faint glowing symbols shimmered under the skin. She whispered something again, but Eli couldn't understand the words. It sounded like pain. Eli frowned. "You're hurt?" She shook her head, then pointed to the marks again, the symbols flickering faintly like dying stars. "What is that?" he murmured. "Some kind of code?" Before he could ask more, the ground outside shook, faint but real. The girl gasped and pressed against the wall. Eli grabbed his scanner and looked out the window. 3 patrol drones hovered past, scanning every corner with blue lights. They stopped near the junk fence, whirring. "Damn," Eli whispered. "They're close." He turned off every light and motioned for Lyra to stay quiet. She didn't move. Her glowing eyes stayed on him, trusting him completely. The drones hovered for a long moment. One scanned the shack door, a narrow beam of blue light sweeping across the metal. Eli held his breath. Then suddenly Lyra raised her hand. The markings on her wrist flared, bright and white. The heater flickered, the tools shook, and the drone outside froze mid-air. Its blue light blinked twice, then died completely. The other drones backed away fast, their alarm screaming. Within seconds, they shot back into the sky and vanished. Eli stared at Lyra, speechless. "What did you just do?" Lyra lowered her hand, breathing hard. The symbols on her wrist faded again. "You shut them down," Eli said quietly. Just like that. She looked scared now, shaking her head. No tell." Eli understood. She didn't want anyone to know what she could do. Whatever power she had, it wasn't normal. It was dangerous. Maybe even forbidden. He crouched beside her. "It's okay. I won't tell anyone." Lyra looked at him with tearful eyes, searching his face for truth. Then slowly she nodded. Eli sighed and rubbed his face. "All right. We can't stay here long. If they come back with scanners, they'll find heat traces." He grabbed his small hoverbike and tossed a few tools into his bag. "We're going to your ship, Lyra. Maybe there's something there that can help us." Lyra's eyes widened in fear. "No, bad. Fire! Boom!" she said in broken words, making an explosion motion with her hands. "The ship exploded?" She nodded sadly. "All gone." Eli frowned. "Then what were you pointing to?" She hesitated, then pressed her hand against his chest, right over his heart. "Secret there," she whispered. Eli didn't understand. "Secret inside the ship?" Lyra nodded again, serious now. "Fine. Before dark sky come." "Dark sky?" She looked out the window. "Hunters." Eli's stomach turned. You mean someone's coming for you? She nodded, trembling. Eli stood and grabbed his coat. Then we'd better move before they get here. He lifted her again. She was shaking but didn't resist. As they stepped outside, lightning split the sky in the distance. The storm was coming fast, mixing with dust and thunder. They climbed onto the hover bike, the engines humming softly. Eli wrapped his arm around her to keep her steady. Hold on tight, he said. The bike sped across the dark desert sand, whipping their faces. Behind them, a red light blinked in the clouds, a shape moving fast. Not a patrol drone. Bigger. Silent. Watching. Lyra turned her head and whispered, "They found me." Eli glanced back, his chest tightening as the red light grew larger. "Then let's make them lose you again," he said, pushing the throttle to full power. The bike roared into the storm, disappearing into the sea of lightning. But even as they vanished into the desert night, Eli couldn't shake one thought. What kind of child could shut down machines with her hands? And why did the galaxy want her so badly? The storm hit hard. Winds screamed across the endless dunes, throwing dust and lightning like angry ghosts. Eli held tight to the hoverbike's controls, struggling to see through the chaos. Lyra clung to him, her small hands gripping his jacket, her eyes glowing faintly even through the dust. "Almost there," he shouted over the wind. "Just hang on!" But Lyra didn't answer. She was staring at the sky, at the red light that followed them like a predator. It wasn't a patrol drone. "It was too big, too fast, Eli," she whispered. "They come." He looked back. The light was closer now, cutting through the storm clouds like a burning eye. He cursed under his breath and steered the bike down into a canyon where the storm winds couldn't reach. The engine sputtered, then steadied. The sound of thunder faded behind the cliffs. They slowed to a stop under a ledge. Eli jumped off, breathing hard. "We'll rest here for a second." Lyra slid down silently, her silver hair messy from the wind. She looked up at the canyon walls, then pointed deeper inside. "Ship, there." Eli followed her gaze. In the distance, half buried in the sand, something glowed faintly blue, a massive shape under the dunes. The crash site. They walked slowly toward it. The air was still and heavy, the only sound their footsteps on sand. As they got closer, Eli could see the remains of a small starship, torn apart, scorched black. Its wings were twisted, its hull cracked open like an egg. He stopped and stared. "That's your ship, isn't it?" Lyra nodded sadly. "Home. Gone." Eli climbed onto the broken wing and peered inside the cockpit. Everything was destroyed, panels shattered, wires hanging like vines. But there was something strange about the wreckage. Symbols glowing faintly along the metal, the same markings that shimmered on Lyra's skin. "What language is this?" Eli muttered, brushing sand off the glowing letters. Lyra stepped beside him and touched one of the symbols. It pulsed softly under her hand and the whole ship hummed for a second, like it was alive. "Ship still." "Remember," she whispered. Eli's heart raced. "Remember, you mean it has memory data?" She nodded, "But locked. Can you unlock it?" Lyra hesitated, then placed both hands on the panel. The symbols flared bright blue, running across the wreck like veins of light. Her eyes glowed the same color. The air around her shimmered, static, energy, power. Then suddenly, a hologram burst to life above the wreck. A tall alien man in royal armor, his voice echoing through the canyon. "To anyone who finds this," the hologram said in a calm, deep voice, "protect the child. She carries the legacy of the Astran line. Do not let the hunters reach her. The fate of the Orion Pack depends on her survival." Eli's mouth went dry. "Astran line? The royal family?" Lyra lowered her hands. The light faded and the hologram vanished into dust. Eli stared at her. You're a princess." Lyra didn't answer. She just looked away, tears forming in her glowing eyes. "Lyra," Eli said softly. "Is it true?" She nodded once, slowly. "Father, gone." "All gone." Eli rubbed his forehead, trying to think. A royal child hiding in a junk colony. No wonder the galaxy wanted her. "So those hunters," he said quietly. "They're after you because of who you are." Lyra looked at him with fear. "They want this." She pointed to her wrist again, the glowing marks. "Code of stars. What's that mean?" She took his hand and pressed it against her arm. The markings lit up again. and for a brief moment Eli saw something inside them. Stars, maps, constellations. A route of light leading through unknown systems. It's a map, he whispered. Lyra nodded. To place they can't find. Safe world. Eli realized it. She carried a star map inside her body. A map that could lead to a secret world. Maybe a new home for her people. Maybe something far more powerful. Before he could ask more, the ground shook. A deep metallic roar echoed through the canyon. The sand trembled. Eli grabbed her hand. We have to move. They ran down the canyon as a huge shadow passed overhead. A black ship, sleek and silent, scanning the ground with red beams. The hunters, keep your head down, Eli shouted. The ship's light swept across the canyon walls. When it found the wreck, it stopped. A hatch opened underneath and dark figures descended. Tall, armored, faceless. Lyra gasped. No. Eli pulled her behind a rock. Don't make a sound. The hunters examined the wreck, their scanners buzzing. One of them lifted a communicator. Target's trace confirmed. The child was here. Eli's chest tightened. They were only meters away. He looked around desperately and saw an old tunnel in the rock wall half hidden by sand. This way, he whispered. They slipped inside, crawling through darkness while the hunters searched the wreck above. The tunnel was narrow and cold, but at least it was safe. For now. After a long silence, Eli stopped to catch his breath. Lyra sat beside him, trembling. Hey, he whispered. You're doing good. We'll get out of here. She looked at him with wide, tired eyes. Why, help me? Eli smiled faintly. Because you're not just an alien kid. You're someone worth saving. Lyra blinked, surprised by his words. Then she reached out and touched his hand, a small gesture of trust. Above them, thunder rolled again. But this time, it wasn't the storm. It was engines. The hunter's ship was still there, waiting. Eli looked up at the cracks of light above them. They're not giving up, are they? Lyra shook her head. They never stop. Eli clenched his jaw. Then we'll make them regret coming after you. Somewhere deep in the tunnel, faint blue lights flickered. Another path leading deeper underground. Lyra's markings glowed softly, reacting to it. Eli smiled grimly. Looks like your map wants to show us something. And as they stepped into the glowing tunnel, the hunter's ship turned toward the canyon, launching a flare that lit up the entire desert night. The hunt had truly begun. The tunnel was dark and endless. Eli's flashlight flickered weakly as they walked deeper underground. The air was cold, the walls rough with crystal veins that shimmered faintly in Lyra's light. Each step echoed softly like whispers from another world. How far does this go? Eli muttered, brushing dust from his jacket. Lyra didn't answer. Her glowing eyes were fixed on the walls. The markings on her wrist pulsed brighter with every step, as if the tunnel itself was calling to her. Finally, they reached a wide cavern, and both stopped in awe. The space opened like a hidden city beneath the sand. Giant stone arches rose from the ground, covered with strange symbols that glowed faint blue. Broken statues stood in the corners, half buried in dust. In the center of the chamber stood a large crystal pillar, cracked but still alive with light. What is this place? Eli whispered. Lyra's eyes softened with recognition. Old home of my people, she said slowly. Before war. She stepped closer to the pillar and placed her small hand on it. The light inside it flared up, spreading across the chamber like fire. The carvings on the walls began to glow, lines of energy connecting into shapes, forming star maps and figures in the air. Eli looked around in amazement. You're activating something. It's responding to you. Lyra nodded, whispering words in her ancient tongue. The pillar hummed like a heartbeat. Then a projection appeared in the air, an image of tall beings much like her standing among stars. Who are they? Eli asked. My family, Lyra whispered. Astran, rulers of light. The hologram flickered to another image, planets burning, ships exploding, and dark figures with red eyes spreading through space. The hunters, Eli's jaw tightened. That's them. They destroyed your people, didn't they? Lyra's eyes filled with tears. They take everything. Want the map? To find last safe world, but Father hide it, in me. Eli crouched beside her. That's why you crashed. You were running from them. Lyra nodded. Father said, find the kind one. The one who sees light, not fear. Eli frowned. And he meant me? She smiled faintly. You found me. The silence that followed was heavy and strange. The only sound was the hum of the pillar. For a moment, Eli felt something, not fear, but purpose. Maybe fate really had brought him here. Then the ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. The glow dimmed. Eli stood up fast. That's not good. Lyra's markings flickered nervously. Hunters. Close. How the hell did they find us down here? Eli hissed. Before she could answer, a loud metallic crack echoed through the tunnel behind them. Red lights cut through the darkness. The hunters were coming. Run! Eli shouted. They sprinted deeper into the cavern. Plaster fire ripped through the air, hitting the walls and shattering crystal shards into sparks. Eli grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her behind one of the broken statues. We're trapped, he whispered. Lyra looked at the pillar. Can help, but need power. What kind of power? She pointed to a broken console near the base of the crystal. The screen was dead. Eli crawled over and pulled out a wire from his toolkit. All right, I'll give it power. Just tell me when. He connected his portable battery and sparks flew. The console flickered to life with symbols Eli couldn't read. Lyra ran her fingers across it like a piano. The pillar roared back to life. Brighter than before, a wave of blue energy exploded outward, knocking the hunters off their feet. The air shimmered with light. Eli stared. What did you do? Lyra's eyes glowed white. Wake protector. From the shadows of the chamber, a deep rumble echoed, metal grinding, ancient gears turning. A huge figure rose behind the crystal pillar, a guardian machine shaped like a giant knight made of crystal and metal. Its eyes burned blue like Lyra's. Eli stepped back, stunned. That thing's alive. Lyra looked up at it proudly. Old guardian. Made to protect the Astran bloodline. The hunters regrouped fast, their weapons lighting up again. But before they could fire, the guardian moved. With one swing of its arm, it sent a wave of energy that threw the hunters into the walls like paper dolls. Eli shielded his face from the blast. Remind me not to make it angry. Lyra smiled for the first time in hours. He knows me. The guardian turned its head toward her and lowered one knee, bowing slightly, a gesture of loyalty. Eli's voice softened. He's bowing to you. Because I am last, Lyra said quietly. Last of Astran. Before Eli could respond, the ground rumbled again, this time deeper, louder. The hunter's ship above was drilling into the canyon. Reinforcements, Eli cursed. They're not stopping. Lyra looked up at the ceiling. Guardian can't follow outside. Too old, must leave. Eli nodded. Then let's get out while we can. The Guardian turned and opened a hidden door in the wall, a path glowing faintly with blue light. Lyra took Eli's hand and pulled him toward it. As they stepped through, the Guardian raised its weapon and faced the tunnel, ready to hold the enemy back. Lyra stopped and looked back one last time. Her eyes shimmered. Thank you, she whispered. The giant's eyes dimmed softly in response and almost like it understood. Then it turned as the hunters broke through the wall. The last thing Eli saw before the door closed was light and fire as the Guardian charged. The tunnel beyond was quiet again, lit by glowing blue veins. Eli exhaled. I don't believe what just happened. Lyra smiled faintly through her tears. He saved us. Like you. Eli looked ahead at the endless tunnel. Let's make his sacrifice worth it. Lyra nodded and held his hand tighter. Next path. To stars. Stars? Eli asked. Yes, she said softly. To place my father hid. The safe world. Eli looked up at the tunnel lights that curved upward, like a road to the sky. Then we'd better find it before the hunters find us again. Behind them, the ground trembled once more, but they didn't look back. The human and the alien child walked deeper into the ancient light, unaware that what waited ahead would change the fate of both their worlds forever. The tunnel stretched upward for miles, spiraling like a giant staircase carved into stone. Eli's legs ached, but he kept climbing. Lyra walked beside him silently, her glowing marks lighting the way. Neither spoke much. Only the hum of energy around them filled the air. How long has this place been here? Eli asked after a while. Lyra touched the wall. Before humans. Before hunters. Long time. Her voice was soft, almost sad. She paused and pointed ahead. Light above. We're close. They climbed the last turn and stepped into a vast cavern. Eli stopped dead, his mouth open in shock. It wasn't just a cave. It was an observatory, hidden beneath the desert for centuries. The ceiling was a dome of transparent crystal, showing the stars above. Giant machines lined the edges, the silent ancient telescopes aimed at the heavens. Dust floated in the blue light like drifting snow. "Whoa," Eli whispered. "What is this place?" Lyra looked up with awe. "The sky chamber. My ancestors made it, to find new stars when home burned." Eli walked among the machines, brushing sand off old panels. "Looks like this place hasn't been touched in hundreds of years." Lyra climbed onto the central platform, where a small console sat covered in dust. Her fingers glowed as she touched it. The room came alive. Lights burst across the dome. Thousands of stars flickered into view, forming a giant map of the galaxy. Eli stepped back, overwhelmed. It felt like standing inside the universe itself. Lyra's markings pulsed brighter, syncing with the holographic map. She spoke in her ancient tongue, and lines of light began to connect the stars and forming paths, circles, and finally, a symbol. A single star in the far corner of the galaxy glowed gold. Eli frowned. "That's it, isn't it?" "The safe world," Lyra nodded. "Elisara. Hidden by Father. Protected by light field," Eli stared at it. "That's what they're after. They want to find that planet." Lyra looked at him seriously. "If hunters find it, all die. They want to turn safe world into weapon." Eli clenched his jaw. "Then we can't let that happen." But before he could say more, a sudden noise echoed from below. A low metallic hum. The observatory's old lights flickered. Eli froze. Lyra's expression darkened. "They follow." Again! He ran to the window slit and saw movement outside. In the canyon below, the hunter's ship hovered like a dark cloud. Red spotlights cut through the night. They had tracked them again. Eli turned. "We need to move now." Lyra shook her head. "Wait, one more thing." She touched the console again, and the golden star began to spin, projecting strange symbols into the air. Eli watched in confusion as the hologram formed a key, made of light. "What's that?" he asked. Lyra pointed to her chest. "Half key inside me. Other half here. Together open gate to Elisara." Eli blinked. "You mean your body holds half the coordinates?" She nodded. "Father made so only Astran blood can open it if I die." "Map dies too." Eli felt a chill crawl down his neck. "Then the hunters need you alive." Lyra looked down sadly. "Yes, to use me." Before Eli could answer, the observatory shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. A red beam cut through the crystal dome. The hunters had begun blasting through. "Run!" Eli shouted. He grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her toward the back tunnel, but the blast door suddenly slammed shut. The main entrance was blocked. "Damn it!" he cursed. "We're trapped!" Lyra looked around desperately, then pointed at one of the old telescopes. "There, small exit." Eli saw it. A narrow maintenance shaft leading outside through the dome. "You're kidding," he muttered. "We'll never fit through that." Lyra crawled toward it quickly. "I can. Yeah, but what about me?" Lyra turned, her eyes full of determination. "I opened from outside. You trust me?" Eli looked at her. A child, barely alive days ago, now standing against galactic hunters with fearless eyes. He nodded. "Always." Lyra squeezed through the shaft and disappeared. Eli waited, heart pounding. Explosions shook the ground as red light filled the observatory. A voice echoed through the air, mechanical, deep, and cold. "Return the child." Human mechanic Eli Ward. "Surrender and live." Eli smirked. "You guys never learn." He grabbed a plasma torch from his belt and hid behind a fallen pillar. The first hunter burst through the ceiling, landing hard. Another followed. Their armor glowed red like molten metal. Eli threw the torch, hitting a fuel tank near the wall. The explosion lit up the whole room. The hunter staggered back, alarm screaming. Eli ran to the door panel and slammed his fist against it. "Come on, Lyra." Just as another blast tore through the wall, the emergency locks hissed open. Light flooded in, and there she was, her eyes blazing white. "Eli!" she shouted. He sprinted toward her as the hunters raised their weapons. Lyra raised her hands, and the markings on her arms burst into pure energy. A wave of blue light exploded from her body, shattering the hunter's armor like glass. Eli shielded his face. When the light faded, the hunters lay still, their suits smoking. Lyra stumbled, weak from the effort. Eli caught her before she fell. "Easy, kid. You did it." She looked up at him, breathing hard. Too many more come. Must go, Eli nodded. Then we run until the stars themselves can't find us. They stepped out into the cold desert night. The storm had passed and the sky was clear and full of stars. The observatory behind them glowed faintly as it collapsed in silence. Lyra looked up at the sky, the same one that once guided her people. Sky remembers me, she whispered. Eli smiled softly. Then let's make sure it remembers both of us. She looked at him, confused. You help me. But why? He paused, then said quietly, because once I thought the galaxy had no more good left in it. Then I met you. Lyra smiled faintly, eyes shining. You see light? Not fear, Eli nodded. And I'm not about to let that light go out. He looked toward the horizon where the desert met the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the hunters, beyond the broken colonies, was Elisara, the hidden world of peace her father dreamed of. Eli tightened his grip on her small hand. Let's find your world, princess, Lyra squeezed back. Together. And as they disappeared into the endless night far above them, the hunter's ship turned in pursuit, silent, red, and angry. The chase for the last Astron had only just begun. The desert stretched endlessly under a red dawn. Eli's hoverbike moved across the sand like a silver arrow, leaving a trail of dust behind. Lyra sat in front of him, wrapped in his old jacket, her eyes half closed. She hadn't spoken much since the fight at the observatory. The power she'd used had drained her deeply. Eli watched the horizon. His map showed a small human outpost about 40 kilometers ahead, an old mining base abandoned years ago. It might be their only chance to rest and find supplies. Hang on, Lyra, he said quietly. We're almost there. She nodded weakly. I'm fine. But she wasn't. Her light was fading, the glow on her skin dimmer now. Whatever energy she had used against the hunters had taken more than just strength. It had taken life. By midday, the broken towers of Iron Haven Outpost rose from the dunes like dead giants. Metal skeletons of old cranes stood against the wind. The place was silent. Too silent. Eli parked the hoverbike near a collapsed hangar. Stay close, he said. Places like this, they tend to have surprises. Lyra's eyes darted around nervously. No people? Not anymore, Eli replied. They left when the mines dried up, or when the hunters came. They walked through the empty streets. The sand had swallowed half the buildings. Doors creaked in the wind. Signs written in Old Earth language hung loosely. Oxygen storage, reactor core, command center. Inside one of the structures, Eli found a few old power cells. Still good, he muttered, pocketing them. He turned to Lyra. You should sit, rest. She sat quietly on a piece of broken metal, watching him work. Her eyes wandered to a wall covered in old graffiti. One symbol stood out, a red mark shaped like a claw. She frowned. Eli, this sign, Hunter's mark. Eli froze. Are you sure? She nodded. They've been here. A chill ran down his spine. He pulled out his scanner and checked the readings, faint traces of radiation and heat signatures. Damn. You're right, this place isn't as empty as it looks. They moved carefully toward the command building. Inside, the air was cooler, heavy with dust. Broken monitors still flickered weakly. Eli tapped a few buttons on the main console and to his surprise, a message log appeared. System logs, he murmured. Let's see what these people left behind. The screen blinked to life, showing the last entry. Log Dar 987, Iron Haven, Commander Juno Hale. The hunters offered us protection, but at a price. They said they were sent by the Galactic Council to help us rebuild. We believed them. Until the disappearances started. Workers taken at night. No screams, just silence. I think they're using us for something. Something alive. If anyone finds this, run. Don't trust the machines. And Logelli's blood ran cold. They were here pretending to help, he said. Then they took everyone. Lyra's voice trembled. Hunters not just machines, they Used to be people. Eli looked at her sharply. What do you mean, people? Lyra touched the console screen, where the red claw symbol flickered. Long ago, hunters were Astran soldiers. My people made them to protect Galaxy. But they changed. Their minds broke. They hate what made them. So they're your kind's creation? Eli said, stunned. She nodded slowly. Yes, they destroy us, because we remind them what they lost. Eli exhaled. So your people built their own monsters. Lyra lowered her head. Father said every light makes shadow. Eli stood silent for a moment, feeling the weight of her words. Then a sudden static noise broke the silence. The console crackled. A signal. Eli Ward, human mechanic. You are not alone. Eli froze. What the hell? The voice continued, distorted but clear. You have the Astran child. Bring her to the old reactor and you will live. Lyra's hand gripped his arm. They found us again. Eli shut off the console and drew his blaster. Not this time. They ran through the corridors, their footsteps echoing. Shadows moved behind broken windows, tall, silent figures. The hunters were closing in. Eli pushed Lyra behind a crate. Stay low. He peeked out and fired at the nearest shadow. Sparks flew as the shot hit metal armor. The hunter turned, red eyes glowing. Another one appeared beside it. Two of them, Eli muttered. Perfect. He ducked back and whispered, Lyra, can you still use your power? She shook her head weakly. Too tired. Then I'll buy us time. He threw an energy cell across the hall and shot it mid-air. The explosion filled the room with fire and smoke. Go! He yelled. They ran through a side door, climbing to the rooftop. The wind howled, carrying dust and sparks. From up there, Eli could see more red lights moving across the desert. Dozens of hunters marching toward Iron Haven. Lyra gasped. So many. Eli clenched his fists. They're done playing hide-and-seek. He spotted an old transport ship half buried in the sand beyond the fence. It looked broken, but maybe not completely dead. That ship, if I can power it up, we can get out of here. Lyra nodded, determination flashing in her tired eyes. I help. They slid down the metal roof and sprinted across the sand, dodging between debris. Blaster bolts hissed past them. Eli dived under the ship, opened a panel, and began rewiring frantically. Come on, he muttered. Don't die on me now. Lyra stood near the hatch, hands trembling, eyes glowing again. I can give power, she whispered. Before Eli could stop her, she pressed her palm against the hull. The symbols on her skin flared to life. The engines roared weakly, then stronger. The ship trembled, rising slightly off the ground. You did it, Eli shouted. But Lyra swayed, her knees giving out. Eli caught her just before she fell. Hey, stay with me. She smiled faintly. Still light, inside. Behind them, the hunters broke through the gate, red lights flashing. Eli carried Lyra into the cockpit and hit the ignition. The ship rose shakily into the air, engines screaming. Hold on, he yelled. The hunters fired, lasers slicing through the air, but the ship broke free, soaring above the outpost. Below, Iron Haven burned, the ghosts of the past swallowed by fire. As they flew into the rising sun, Eli looked down at the ruins. We built monsters, he whispered, and now they're hunting our children. Lyra stirred weakly beside him. Then we make new light, she murmured. Eli looked at her, her small glowing face filled with quiet strength. Yeah, he said softly. A light strong enough to make them remember what being alive means. And as their ship disappeared, into the dawn a new signal blinked on Eli's screen, faint but clear, a beacon from deep space. Coordinates for Elisara. The safe world was real. And waiting. The stars ahead looked closer now. Eli's ship rattled as it pushed through the black silence of space. Broken warning lights blinked red across the console, and smoke curled from the rear engine. Lyra sat beside him, wrapped in a blanket, her silver skin pale and faintly glowing. She had been quiet for hours, staring out the window at the endless stars. Her voice, when it came, was soft. "Eli, we close." He nodded, eyes fixed on the blinking beacon on his screen. The coordinates from her father's map. "Yeah, if this data's right, your world's just beyond that nebula." The ship trembled again. The fuel was almost gone. Lyra looked down at her hands, tracing the fading symbols on her skin. "I feel it calling," she whispered. "Like home remembers me." Eli smiled faintly. "Then we better make sure you get there." As they entered the nebula, the space around them turned into a sea of color. Clouds of blue and purple gas swirling like living things. Lightning crackled across the void. "Beautiful," Eli murmured. Lyra smiled weakly. "Father said stars talk. You just have to listen." Eli opened his mouth to answer, but then alarm screamed. Red light flashed across the dashboard. "Multiple signatures detected," the computer warned. Eli's face went pale. "No, no, no." Outside, shapes emerged from the nebula. Dark ships, their red lights cutting through the mist. Hunters. At least 6 of them. "They followed us." Lyra cried. Eli gritted his teeth. "They must have tracked the beacon." "Damn it, the lead ship opened fire." Beams of crimson light sliced through the nebula. One hit their wing, shaking the ship violently. "Hold on," Eli shouted, pulling the controls. The ship dived through the storm, lightning flashing around them. Lyra clung to his arm. "They won't stop." "They never stop." Eli's eyes hardened. "Then we stop them." He pushed the throttle to maximum, heading straight for the biggest cloud of lightning. "If we go through there, their scanners won't see us." Lyra looked terrified. "But storm will kill us." Eli grinned. "Only if we're unlucky." The ship plunged into the storm. Electricity tore across the hull. Systems flickered. The cockpit filled with sparks. Lyra screamed as light wrapped around them. But through it all, Eli didn't let go of the controls. When they finally broke through the other side, silence returned. The nebula thinned, and before them appeared a world of gold and green, a planet bathed in light. Lyra gasped. Elisara. It was beautiful. Oceans glowing like sapphire. Forests shimmering with silver mist. Cities floating above the clouds like islands in the sky. But their moment of peace ended quickly. The hunters followed through the storm, damaged but alive. The largest ship descended from the clouds, black as night, wings like blades. Eli cursed. "We're out of fuel. We can't outrun them anymore." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. "We don't run. We finish." The hunter's ship sent a transmission. A deep voice echoed through the speakers, cold, mechanical, yet somehow human. "Astran Air, surrender and your death will be painless." Eli looked at her. "He's talking to you." Lyra's small hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "No, I talked to him." She pressed her hand on the console. The symbols on her skin lit up again. A projection appeared. The hunter's leader, a tall, armored figure with one red eye and one blue. "Do you know who I am, child?" The figure said. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You were once Orel, captain of Astran Guard." The figure paused. "That name is gone. I am the Reclaimer now." "You were my father's friend," Lyra whispered. "Why destroy what he built?" "Because your father built gods," the Reclaimer said coldly, "and left us to serve as their slaves. We were human once, Astran once, now we are nothing. Machines that remember pain." Eli clenched his fists. "So you punish a child for your own hate?" The Reclaimer turned his gaze on Eli. "And you, human, why die for her?" "Your kind hates hers." Eli's voice was steady. "Because I saw a starving girl in the trash and saw a person, not a monster. Something your kind forgot how to do." For a long moment, the Reclaimer said nothing. Then his ship's lights flared red again. "Then you'll die together." Missiles launched from the hunter's ships. Eli grabbed the controls, shouting, "Brace yourself." The ship shook violently as explosions lit the sky. One missile hit their engine, and alarm screamed. "We're going down," Eli yelled. They crashed through the planet's atmosphere, fire trailing behind them. Lyra closed her eyes, whispering something in her language. The ship slammed into a golden field. Metal screamed, glass shattered, and then silence. Eli coughed, pulling himself free from the wreckage. "Lyra!" he shouted. She lay nearby, barely breathing, her glow flickering. He crawled to her and lifted her in his arms. "Come on, kid. Not now." Her eyes opened weakly. "We're here," she whispered. "You kept promise." Above them, the Reclaimer's ship landed with a thunderous roar. The massive figure stepped out, walking slowly toward them. Eli stood holding Lyra close. You want her, you'll have to go through me. The reclaimer raised his weapon. You cannot win. Eli smiled sadly. Maybe not, but I can choose what kind of human I am. Before the hunter could fire, Lyra raised her trembling hand. The markings on her body glowed one last time, brighter than ever before. The ground trembled. Light spread through the air, connecting to the sky, to the planet itself. No more hate, she whispered. No more shadows. The light engulfed everything, the hunters, the ship, the sky. It wasn't fire. It was peace, and warm and endless. When the light faded, the reclaimer was gone. Only ashes and quiet wind remained. Eli knelt beside her. Lyra. Hey, stay with me. She smiled faintly, eyes full of stars. Elisara. Safe now. Because of you, Eli whispered. Her small hand touched his face. No, because you saw light. In darkness. Her glow faded and her hand went still. Eli sat there for a long time, holding her in the golden field as dawn broke over Elisara. The sky above shimmered, and for a moment he thought he saw her face in the clouds smiling. He looked toward the horizon and whispered, Rest easy, princess. The galaxy remembers you now. And when he finally stood, he saw something beautiful, new life blooming where her light had touched the ground. Tiny flowers of silver and blue glowing softly in the sunlight. The legend of the little alien girl who ate scraps like a dog, but became the light of two worlds, had just begun.